This is a special Commitment 2018 presentation. The Democratic Gubernatorial Primary Debate. Broadcasting live from across the entire state of Maine, here's your host, Megan Torgeson.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for tonight's Democratic Gubernatorial Debate. It is part of WMTW News 8's Commitment 2018 coverage. I'm Megan Torgeson and we are joining you live from the campus of UMaine Augusta, and we're broadcasting our debate tonight statewide thanks to our partnerships with WABI TV5 in Bangor and WAGM in Presque Isle. So we're going to ask the audience to please refrain from applause until after we introduce our candidates seeking the Democratic nomination in the race for governor. We have lawyer and Army veteran Adam Cody, former Biddeford Mayor Donna Dion, former Sheriff and current State Senator Mark Dion, former House Speaker Mark Eves, Attorney General Janet Mills, former State Representative Diane Russell, and lobbyist Betsy Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you to our audience as well for joining us tonight. Well, our questions tonight come from all over the state. They're going to be asked by the members of our editorial panel over to my right. First, we have WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill, WABI TV5 anchor Emily Tadlock, and WAGM reporter Isaac Lukin. So each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions. There's the traffic light in front of us, which you're probably all well familiar with at this point. You're going to see that traffic light turn yellow when you have 15 seconds left, and when it turns red, clearly your time is up and you must stop talking. We will begin with 1 minute opening statements from each of the candidates. We have decided that we will go in alphabetical order, so we will begin tonight with Adam Cody.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We've had about 50 of these debates through the course of the year. I'm honored to be with 7 great other candidates, including 4 women. And we've really enjoyed this time, but we're now in the last week. And I'm convinced more than ever that our next governor really has to do 2 things well. The first is to restore a sense of honor and service and humility and dignity to state government, to get it functioning and working well again so that people have the trust in it. The second is that we need a transformational governor. We're last in New England, one of the last in the country on jobs, income, and economic growth. I have the broadest leadership experience on this group, from serving in local to statewide boards, working in clean energy, and serving in 3 combat tours. I'd be honored to have your support on June 12th, and I look forward to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we go to Donna.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. I'm Donna Dion, and I want to be your next governor. I have 45 of diverse years of professional, financial, management experience. That has, I find out after all these years that I've been in training for this position. And so taking that includes 6 years as mayor of the city of Biddeford, and at the same time being the chair of the school committee, has definitely challenged me to put volatile people together and trying to get them to work together. My platform is respect. And respect will allow us to start talking about issues and not necessarily about personalities and political tags. We need to look at some very sensitive issues, and we need to know how we're going to fund them. And so I'm the money candidate. I want to look at getting those achieved and figuring out the best way to use the money that currently exists without putting additional pressure on the people of our community. So, welcome.
Thank you. Senator Dion.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mark Dion. I'm a state senator from Portland. I've also served for 40 years in one manner or another of public service, whether it was at the municipal level, the county level, or the state level. I've been in the legislature for 8 years. I've chaired criminal justice and energy, 2 tough assignments dealing with serious issues from drug trafficking, rehabilitation, guns, solar energy, and trying to rein in the corporate excesses of CMP and Emera when they raise their head. I'm running because I believe your choice about governor is also your choice about what type of Democratic Party we intend to be for the next 4 years. I intend to be the type of governor that'll listen first and speak last. Thank you.
Mr. Eaves.
Well, good evening. My name is Mark Eaves. Served in the state legislature for 8 years, 4 of which I was honored to be elected by my peers as Speaker of the House. Well before I ever thought about running for public office, I went into a profession of helping people as a family therapist. I would drive out to individuals' homes and families' homes, and often in overlooked parts of our state, and drive down long driveways and knock on doors, and I would never know what was on the other side. But I grew up in a family where my dad was a chaplain in the Air Force for 35 years. My mom was a public school teacher, and they taught us not to give up on people, not to turn our backs on people. So I'd walk through those doors and work with people in pretty tough situations. I took that same approach when I ran my first race 10 years ago, won a district that hadn't been held by a Democrat in nearly 40 years, went to the State House, showed up every day to represent my district. There's a lot of opportunity that our state has. And we have to start telling a different story about our state. I look forward to this evening and this debate, and thank you for having us.
Attorney General Mills.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Janet Mills. I'm the Attorney General for the state of Maine. I've always stood up for Maine people, whether it was small businesses, working families, victims of gun violence or domestic abuse. And I think that's why I earned Emily's List endorsement this year. And I stood up to Big Pharma and the Wall Street giants. I stood up to Paul LePage when he tried to take health care away from thousands of young people in Maine. I stood up to Donald Trump and Scott Pruitt when they wanted to let big polluters despoil our air and water. As someone who has won 8 elections in the 2nd Congressional District, I have a vision of a Maine that is undivided, prosperous north to south and west to east, a Maine where our young people can find good-paying jobs here at home, where our teachers are respected and students are safe. And I'm not a newcomer to these issues. I know how to start from day one and turn the state around and go forward. I'm running for governor because I know that the best chapter in our state's history has yet to be written, and I want to write it with you.
Diane Russell.
Good evening. My name is Diane Russell. I was born and raised in Bryant Pond, the last town in the country to have the crank phone. And I know what it's like to grow up on the wrong end of the digital divide and the wrong end of the economic divide. I am running for governor to put power back into the hands of real people. This system is broken, and it has been rigged by people who are very, very powerful. And if we don't redistribute the power in this country and in this state, we're never going to have things like Medicare for all. We're never going to have a $15 minimum wage. We're never going to have an economic security for Maine people that that'll be good for the long term. My background is in changing systems, whether it's taking on the superdelegates, whether it's changing the system to ranked choice voting, or even legalizing marijuana. I bring transformational change and transformational leadership, and I redistribute power back into the hands of people, which is what we need. If you elect me, I'm going to bring you Medicare for all and a new deal.
Betsy Sweet.
Hi, thanks so much for having us, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Betsy Sweet, and for 35 years, I've been an advocate for Maine people. Starting at the Commission for Women, where I served under 2 different governors, a Republican and a Democrat, I wanted to make sure that voices that weren't represented in our legislature were there, because policies and budgets that were being formed really affect all of us. And we know if we're not on the table, we're not at the table, we're often on the menu. So I noticed how many people's voices weren't there. So for years, I've represented the elderly and people with mental health issues, people with disabilities, domestic violence, sexual assault. And we've made some great progress, passing the first Family Medical Leave Act in the country, getting domestic violence services for folks, providing mental health. But those are getting harder and harder to do and to hold on to those progresses. Because why? Because our government is being taken away from us by money and politics. I am the only candidate in this Democratic primary who's running as a clean elections candidate, because until we get money out of politics, we are never going to get health care for all, and we are never going to get our environment clean, and so many of the things we need to do. So I can't wait for the questions, and I look forward to tonight. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, we are going to turn to the questions right now. We're going to turn to our panel. We have WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill is going to ask our first question having to do with the economy.
Yep. Thank you all for being here. The first question is about jobs in Maine. As you all know, Maine has the oldest median age of any state in the nation. Our question is from Twitter. Ryan Lazanik tweeted to us and asked us to ask you, if elected, how will you help young people stay in Maine if they want to? How do you plan to attract and retain young, skilled people in our state?
You have 1 minute to answer these questions. Donna Dion, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's a collaboration throughout the state because you first obviously have to work with students as they're going through the school system from middle school on, being sensitive to the key skills that you seem to be being picked up by the teachers who are working directly with them. And making sure when they get into high school that we're collaborating with them so they make a determination if they want to go to a community college, if they want to go to a college, and then working with the colleges at the same time, that they start providing courses for the businesses that exist, and how do we do internships, paid internships, so we get young students actually involved, roll up their sleeves, involved into specific programs, so they start seeing how if they start planting roots in Maine and have the kind of job they like, that they can start with a good income and start seeing how they can establish themselves and stay right here in the state of Maine.
Mark Dion.
Okay, I was waiting for the signal from the traffic light. Being a former police officer, I follow that.
Unless it's green.
All right, good enough. Listen, there's a couple things that have to be said here. One, our society is aging out. There will be a lot of work here. The question is, will young people assume those responsibilities and take up the slack from those who are ready and willing and able to retire? I believe that we should see this as an economic development program. I would propose that we create an office of recruitment in the DECD, the Department of Economic Development, and assign navigators across the state. If this is a threat to our economy, then we have to meet that threat with real money and people on the ground that will help young people connect to the communities that they may have an interest in. We have to see this as a local issue, not just a state problem. So that's the first thing. The two other ones we talk a lot about is make housing affordable. That's a key decision for someone who wants to stay and build a family in a community and deal with college debt.
Thank you. This is job number one of the next governor. As Paul indicated, our workforce, 50% of our workforce is eligible to retire in the next 10 years. It's a remarkable challenge for our state. I've got 3 young kids. They're finishing up the 7th, 5th, and 3rd grade. It's a big reason why Laura and myself decided to run for governor. We want our kids to find their future right here. The only way that we're going to do that is if we make robust investments in our vocational training programs so that every student that graduates high school has an employable credential, whether they go on to community college or 4-year college or beyond. I worked with loggers in the northern part of the state and machinists in the southern part of the state using the same economic development model, and that is working with businesses, our public universities and institutions, and making sure that we're being a partner to create jobs here in this state. I've got the leadership, the skill set, and the relationships to follow through on that. There's nothing more than I want than my kids to find their future here. We have to do this. It is the job number one of the next governor.
Ms. Reeves, thank you. Jenna Mills.
Thank you. And you know, I agree about the trades, Mark, and that's why I used settlement funds a couple of years ago to start plumbing programs, new plumbing programs at Mount Blue, Biddeford High School, Lewiston High School, and Oxford Hills High School. And I said, get some young women in those programs. And you know what? Guess what? A year ago, the highest achieving VOC-Tech student at Mount Blue was a young woman in the plumbing program. But I think 3 things broadly we need to attract young people and keep young people here if they want to stay here: research and development, infrastructure, and a good educational system. Infrastructure including cell phone coverage and broadband. People don't want to come here if they can't have good access to the internet, high-speed internet. We've got to welcome new Mainers. We've got to make sure that people with skills coming from abroad are welcome here. And that's why I joined the lawsuit to prevent the Trump administration from rolling back the DACA program, because there are hundreds of people here in Maine offering their skills and getting trained and working here in Maine and contributing to our economy. I can't imagine sending them back to some war-torn country that they never knew. That would be a tragedy.
Thank you for the question, Ryan. This is something that's near and dear to my heart. If you want to solve the problem of keeping young people in the state, hire a young person for the next governor. First and foremost, we need to stop closing rural elementary schools because people my age are not going to have a place to educate our children. 2, I led the fight to legalize marijuana. People can laugh, but if you want young people to stay here, that's a good bonus. But the big thing that we need, the big thing that we really need to talk about is student debt. It's one of the reasons I fought so hard, along with a whole team of people, to bring the Opportunity Maine program into fruition, which is a dollar-for-dollar tax credit for students who graduate. It's against your state income tax credits. But what people don't realize is that businesses can pay the student loan payments for their eligible employees as well. We have to get businesses paying those student loan payments because there is a whole generation of people who have graduated, myself included, with a significant amount of student loan debt. And we cannot buy houses because our debt to income ratio is all messed up. So if we fix that, we're going to boost our economy pretty quickly and attract young people.
All right, Diane Russell, thank you. Betsy Sweet.
Yeah, I keep saying we get this question quite a bit because it's such an important one. And I always say, if we want to bring young people here, we have to stop old people from asking old people how to do it. So even younger than you, Diane. But I do think broadband is a key piece, and encouraging an entrepreneurial economy. So many young people now work on their own or can work telecommute from anywhere in the country, and we want those people here. I think also student debt is crushing, and so I have this proposal to offer to every high school student who graduates from Maine a year of giving community service, doing elder care, daycare, teaching English as a new language, English as a second language to our immigrants, or helping with trail building. And in exchange for that, they get 2 years of free tuition, either at a community and technical college or the last 2 years of a 4-year education, so that they actually can finish. So many of our kids start but don't finish. That gives them a sense of community, of something bigger than they are, and it helps with the student debt problem that allows them to stay here in Maine or come to Maine.
Well, jumping off on that education point, we are going to turn now to our panel for our next question. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Cody. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Tell you what he said.
Sorry, Adam Cody.
No, I love this question. It's my favorite question. I don't know if I can answer in a minute, but I'll try. My wife and I talked about this forever. We have 5 young kids, and if you look at other parts of the country that have been able to do this, part of it is policy, part of it is culture. On the policy perspective, it's infrastructure, it's having better broadband. We have one of the worst in the country. It's workforce training, internships, education, like Donna mentioned. It's also competitive advantages. You look at the businesses that actually have a young workforce in Maine, they're in renewable energy, they're in aquaculture, they're in finding the next generation of products and making it exciting. When you look at the research triangle down in North Carolina, you look at Austin, you look at Denver, they've also created a bit of a culture where innovators, entrepreneurs, people are welcome from all over. That's what young people want, and I know we can do that here in Maine. We have such an abundance of natural resources, and we could be a leader on so many of these issues, and I'd focus on that as governor. Thank you.
Okay, well now we're going to, perfect answer. Now we're going to turn to our panel. We have Emily Tadlock, who's going to talk to us a little bit about some questions about education.
Thank you. One of Governor LePage's signature education reforms is the switch to proficiency-based education, in which students are evaluated on proficiency in 8 key areas before they can graduate from high school. This change has drawn criticism from both ends of the political spectrum. Our questions to you are, 1, what do you think about proficiency-based education? Would you keep it, get rid of it, or change it?
We're going to start with you, Senator Dion.
I have this fundamental assumption that teachers teach, and they're in the best position to understand what works for our children, and as a parent, that's where I placed my trust, was in their judgment. I'm neither for nor against proficiency-based education, but I will tell you this, we haven't supported it in Augusta with funding or technical assistance. I rather see education as a local issue, decided by school boards that are closest to the families they intend to serve and closest to the teachers who understand the capacity, the ability, and the strengths of their students. I don't care much what system we use as long as our students get the education they deserve and one that we can afford at the local level. It's expensive, and I would defer to local school boards to make that decision. Then in Augusta, we can support those decisions.
Well, one of the first things we have to do to improve our public education system is fully fund it, and fully fund it in a way that voters have asked us to twice. The last time, they gave us a funding mechanism of asking everybody to pay their fair share so that we can make these investments. I support that ballot initiative, I support that funding mechanism, and I support making sure that my first budget would have 55% funding for public education. As it relates to proficiency-based diplomas, we have had 8 commissioners of education in the last 7 years. It has been a complete failure from the governor, and the next governor has a lot of catch-up to do. Education is connected to our economy, and when you don't have a strong leader to lead the Department of Education, there's no wonder everybody's falling all over themselves around proficiency-based diplomas. If it's fully funded, if it has leadership, if it's resourced locally, then I think, when I think of my 3 kids, I want them to graduate with a diploma that they can go into the world and get a good job. So I'm not fundamentally opposed to it, but I am opposed to the fact that we haven't funded education and given the leadership that the local districts need.
Attorney General Janet Mills, your thoughts on proficiency-based education?
10 times
yeah,
fast.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a good goal. Only 4 other states, I believe, have adopted proficiency-based diplomas as a mandate, however. And it's a goal, but unless you have leadership from the top to help train the trainers, to help adopt guidelines, promulgate guidelines, there are some school districts that have done a very good job implementing proficiency-based diplomas, but there are a lot of school districts that are kind of floundering because they're not sure what's expected. So it does require leadership from the top and an education commissioner who knows what he or she is doing and can lead in that area. We need to make sure that the a diploma from a Maine high school means something. We also have to accommodate kids who aren't able to test to the test and who can't meet the standards. As I understand it, they went from eight categories down to 4, and now maybe for 2 that they're testing on. It ought to be equal across the board, but we need firm leadership from Augusta with intelligent trainers at the top.
This is why there's great places where you can see there's so much agreement from the Democrats on this, and I think that's why we need a Democrat to be in the Blaine House next year. You know, the voters did pass a Robin Hood tax to tax the rich to fund education, and the politicians in Augusta decided that it was a good idea to repeal it because they were smarter than the voters. I respectfully disagree. You know, I couldn't agree more with what's been said, but I also think we need to start talking about literacy. At the 3rd grade, that is where you go from learning to read to reading to learn. If you cannot leave the 3rd grade having been able to read, you're never going to be able to understand any system that works, because any system that we put before those students is not going to work, because the students are not going to be able to learn. We have to get back to basics. We have to invest in early childhood education so that our kids across the state have an equal opportunity to be able to succeed. And we have to make sure that we are investing in the one thing that we all know is a good predictor of outcomes, and that is literacy.
Yeah, I think it's the wrong question, because I think first thing we have to do is make sure that every student in Maine has access to the same quality education. We've been in many, many schools during this campaign, and we see that kids' quality of education is really based on their zip code and their property taxes, and that's not okay. We can't have that. So that's the first thing we have to change. The other thing is, our school systems are based on a system of education that was formed in the 1900s. And the whole purpose was to transfer information from one person to the next. Now, all the information we need is in a computer or a cell phone. And really, education is about using that information, working together, and applying it to the big challenges that we have left in our state. That's not going to be tested, that's not going to be evaluated with standardized testing. The use of standardized testing for both how to evaluate teachers and students has made education not valuable in this 21st century, and is not where we need to do. We need to move away from that. I have 3 kids, 2 of whom went through proficiency-based, 1 who didn't, and I would say that until we fund it and we adequately resource it, it doesn't matter what system we have until we make sure that people have access to real education all across the board and in every corner of the state.
Well, I dealt with proficiency-based learning when I was on the school committee in Sanford, and in our community we have about 70% of our kids in most of our schools on free and reduced lunch. And at the time when the governor cut revenue sharing that Mark was talking about, we had to come up with decisions on hiring replacements for teachers when they retired. We had to cut a lot of programs in the school. And at the same time, the proficiency-based learning requirements were coming down. We couldn't send our educators to professional development courses to help them learn best practices on it. So cutting the funding and then putting down an unfunding mandate is just been crippling to communities. What you see throughout the state of Maine right now, you go to different communities, some of them love PBL, some of them can't stand it, and some of them have just ignored it. And that is absolutely a lack of leadership at the state level. It doesn't address kids with disabilities and others, whether they get a diploma, all of the problems we have. So the next governor will have to have the right leadership at the Commissioner of Education level, and we're going to have to be able to take a good look at it, include teachers on it, to decide whether we move forward with it or whether we don't.
I think proficiency testing is requiring the teachers to put so much time in making sure they reach the levels that they need to by providing information to the student, not necessarily making sure that the student has received the information. But they're trying to get them so that when they're testing, they satisfy all of the requirements that have been placed on them. And the unfunded mandate also has taken a lot of assistance with us putting also disabled individuals into the classroom. With some of the decreases in education, puts even more pressure on the teachers because the aids that they had to assist individuals in the educational arena has been eliminated. And so as a result, you have two forces working against these teachers in order for them to adequately support each student so they have every option available to them for success. And that's the ultimate goal, is having very qualified teachers providing those supports to the students and making sure they receive the adequate training in order for them to be successful through high school and then on to further education. Thank you.
We turn now to Isaac. He has a question about health care.
All right, thank you, Megan. For this question, please give either a yes or no answer. And here's John, and he lives in Old Orchard Beach.
Do you favor universal health care?
Pretty simple question. We'll start with you, Mr. Eves.
Yes, absolutely. Ideally, a single-payer healthcare system.
Yes, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, single payer.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, we need to work our way to a single payer.
Yes, but incorporate a single cost system to control the actual fee structure associated with that.
That was Paul.
Yeah, that one was easy. We have some individual questions for some of you. The first one, Adam Cody. Mr. Cody, you've criticized some of your opponents for positions they held more than a decade ago. In the 2000 election, you registered as a Republican. You said to vote for John McCain and didn't re-enroll in the Democratic Party again until 2006, 2 years before running for Congress. What do you say to Democratic primary voters who will vote next Tuesday who wondered about the years when you left the party?
Well, thanks for the question. I'm glad we got this on TV because I know the commercials are out there right now. I always been a Democrat. I worked in Democratic parties early in my career when I was in college and in high school. I changed my registration in 2000 to vote in the presidential election, to vote against George Bush and for John McCain. I didn't switch it back for a number of years, but I wasn't really involved in politics. I was in Iraq. I was activated. I really didn't start getting involved in politics as an adult till probably 2007. Started the Maine Young Democrats. That had been dormant for quite a while. Worked in that, ran for Congress. So I just haven't been active in it. But between the ages of 26 and 32, I was registered as a Republican, yes. But I don't think that really affects running at 45 for governor, especially when you look at the support I've been getting within the Democratic Party from key leaders throughout the state. So thank you.
Emily, I believe you have a question for Janet Mills.
I do. Our next individual question is for you, Janet Mills. In your first television ad, you talk about fighting Governor LePage when he tried to take health care away from, in your words, children. The ad shows a young girl, but the children in question were 19 and 20-year-olds. Is that ad honest?
When Governor LePage tried to rip health care away from thousands of kids, Janet Mills stopped it.
Yes, it's honest. That's the category in the Medicaid account that says 19 and 20-year-olds have been considered children for Medicaid purposes for 25 years. And they are kids. These are young kids who are, if they're working in stacking shelves in the back of Walmart. They're pumping gas. They're not rich. They don't have rich parents. They're not going to college. They're kids who cannot afford health insurance, plain and simple. And they've been covered by Medicaid, by MaineCare, for about 25 years in the state of Maine. It is an honest ad. I stand by it.
Okay, now we are going to take a short break. When we come back, more questions for the candidates, including how to address the opioid crisis in the state. We'll be right back.
You're watching a special Commitment 2018 presentation, the Democratic Gubernatorial Primary Debate. Broadcasting live across the state of Maine, here's host Megan Torgeson.
Welcome back to our live statewide debate with the candidates seeking the Democratic nomination in the race for governor. I'm Megan Torgeson. We're going to get right back to the questions for the candidates. We're going to start again with WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill.
Thank you, Megan. Our next question is about Maine's opioid crisis, something you're all familiar with. The question comes from Luke Crawford from Mars Hill. Take a listen.
So I'd like to see their stance on opioid abuse in the state of Maine and see what their thoughts were on that and how they were planning on tackling that issue, and if they were going to put more resources into helping people get off of opioids and seeing if they could get rehab options.
And we also want to add to this question, experts agree that fighting Maine's opioid crisis needs to involve law enforcement, prevention, and treatment options. So in addition to answering Luke's question, we're wondering which of those three parts of the solution is the most important for you if elected. Speaker Eaves.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Luke, for the question. We have to treat this as the crisis that it is. Last year, 418 Maine citizens overdosed and are no longer with us today. This current governor has a lock them up or let them die policy, which is really sad to say, but that is the truth. We can't arrest our way out of this. We have to address it as the public health crisis that it is. So investing in treatment, making sure that people have access to treatment so they have health coverage when they need it, and Medicaid expansion, we talked about before, is a big part of that, making sure that people have options to go into treatment. Operation Hope down in Scarborough, the police department has a great operation, a great program, where if you want help, you can walk through the doors of the police department and ask for help. They won't arrest you, they won't lock you up, they'll help you get treatment. The sad thing is, they pick up the phone and they call treatment options outside of our state borders. We can't even have, we don't even have the ability to take care of our own citizens. It is a failure of this governor and a legacy of LePage that these numbers have gone up year after year after year.
Speaker Eaves, thank you. Attorney General Diane Mills.
Thanks for the great question. And you know that 86 people died in the first 3 months of this year already. That's a tragedy. It's continuing to grow. Now, I think prevention and education and treatment are all part of the solution. I think that Suboxone needs to be provided at every emergency room. The hub and spokes treatment model needs to be provided across the state of Maine. Narcan, naloxone needs to be provided to all families who want it. You know, when Paul LePage vetoed the naloxone bill, the life-saving medication, he kept saying, Narcan doesn't save lives, it just postpones death. I thought that was awfully callous to talk about Maine citizens that way. So I bought a room full of Narcan with pharmaceutical settlement monies, and I've given it out to 80 police departments across the state of Maine. And as of last weekend, we have saved 465 lives with that Narcan alone. We need to do so much more, teaching kids life-saving decision methods, teaching kids how to stay away from drugs and learn to say no, essentially, and education and treatment.
So for those of us that were born and raised in rural Maine, this crisis should never have happened. We've seen this coming for 2 decades, and this is what a failure of leadership in Augusta looks like. And now that we are at a crisis, we have a governor that absolutely refuses to address the issue. So here's my plan. We need treatment clinics in the most hardest hit regions of the state, whether that's Washington County, Portland, my home county of Oxford County, or any other region where it's been heavily hit. But we also have to stop treating addiction as some sort of a criminal behavior, and we need to start making sure that all options are on the table. That includes medical marijuana. It includes safe injection sites. It includes needle exchanges so that we don't have the secondary effects of hepatitis C and HIV transfer. We have to have these conversations, and we have to have safe places to do it. But the best part about creating these addiction treatment clinics is that we can address the other addiction that is rampant in our state, and that's alcoholism, which is has been rampant for many years, and no one's talking about it.
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is stop treating this issue like a criminal issue and make sure we treat it like a public health issue and a chronic disease issue, which is what it is. And we do not have enough treatment beds right now, and we do not have enough resources for people who are in the throes of addiction right now. But I think we also have to look at the pain behind the pain. So many of our community mental health services are no longer available. They have been decimated by this governor. So that the pain, underneath the pain of addiction and the mental health issues that are so often so present, do not get any service, and you can't access those services. So I think we really have to do that, make sure that that's a priority as well. And then we also know that the #1 predictor of addiction in later life is adverse childhood experiences. So we have to look at what's happening with our young babies and our young families, and what kind of supports do they need, and universal pre-K and Head Start, to make sure that people have good childhood experiences, so that later on they don't turn to addiction as a way to take care of the pain that we have. So I think we need current services, but we also have to look at it more broadly as well.
Yeah, and I would agree with Betsy. Law enforcement, prevention and treatment are all components of it. The problem is Governor LePage has focused primarily on law enforcement. And I've been throughout this state. I've been to over 550 events that I've had. I've spent time with law enforcement folks, spent time with the folks, the treatment facilities. What I hear from law enforcement is that the biggest problem is we don't have enough treatment facilities. And this is a problem that's going on throughout the country, the opioid crisis. And you look at what they're doing in Vermont, you look at what they're doing in Seattle and other areas, it has been a very combined approach. The hub and spoke approach that Janet referenced as well has been the most proven approach to be able to do it, where you come in and you recognize medically assisted treatment, whether it's peer-to-peer approach, counseling, all of those things have worked. Different styles work for different people depending upon what it is, as Betsy mentioned, that they're dealing with that got them there. But as governor, I would hit this at all 3 levels.
I think because this is a comprehensive thing, it hits various ages and it hits various individuals. You know, we have a stigma that says, oh my God, they're druggies because they're addicted to opioids. But it could be your child who had a serious car accident. It could be elderly individuals who come from a generation where treatment for any pain was automatically pills, and as a result they have utilized that for years and years. But we just focus on specific individuals saying they're drug dealers, and they're not. And we need to resolve all of the initial questions that even Betsy just indicated. You know, what's the cause? How did this occur? And how are the coping skills? And how do we transition these individuals back into active individuals? They have not chosen to be addicted, but now we need to assist them to transition them. And we have at least pilot programs that exist right now, which are at least setting the platform to the direction we should go. Thank you.
I've spent 32 years in law enforcement. I've seen addiction up close. I know what an overdose looks like because I've been there. What parents don't want, what families don't want to hear about, is the thought that their loved one could die tonight. When you die from an overdose, you usually die alone. I don't disagree with anything that my colleagues have said, but I think this party, the next governor, has to take a bold step, and it's this. We have to implement medically supervised safe injection sites in this state. You should not die alone. That's the least we should be able to promise to the families of those confronted by substance abuse disorders. They need a place where they can go to be supervised so they live. That's the first question. Narcane's great, but that's after you almost die. I want to make sure you don't die, and in engaging a medical staff, you have a chance for recovery and supervision that's necessary to start you on the path to recovery. That's the bold step we have to take.
All right, Senator Dion, thank you. We are going to turn now back to our panel. Emily Tadlock with WABI, an anchor there, has a question for us. Emily.
The National Rifle Association represents the interests of many law-abiding Mainers, but the organization is also a target for many liberals. Will you accept support from the NRA, including campaign donations?
Is my question? Great.
Yes.
No, of course not. But let me say something more. I'm proud to have been a leader on gun safety issues. I support banning bump stocks and high-capacity magazines, and I've worked on many gun safety issues over the years. That's probably why I got an F from the NRA. Let me say something else. Years before I met my husband, I was with a man who was handsome, charming, and alcoholic. One night in a drunken rage, he held a loaded gun to my head. I was alone in a strange city and I had no place to go, but I packed my bags and I left that place and I never turned back. I was one of the lucky ones. Many women are not so lucky. That's one reason I co-founded the Maine Women's Lobby. It's a reason I've stood up for gun safety measures. It's the reason I stood with Senator Dion last month to help pass a red flag bill. I just want to say to Adam, you can spend another $1 million on attack ads attacking me, but don't ever say I don't care about gun safety. As your governor, I will do everything in my power to make Maine people safe, just as I always have.
I think it's my turn.
Okay.
You know, this is such a hard issue. I grew up, I had a DOE permit by 12. If you put a handgun in front of me or a rifle, I will aim to the target and I won't miss. But when you hear Janet's story, you know, and you know that the NRA is pushing this on people that should not have access to weapons, this is a problem. And when you get an email at 10 o'clock at night that you can't understand because it tells you that 6 members of your family have been slaughtered, and then you learn that the NRA makes money every single time that your families and other families like them have mass shootings, that is not a future that I want anything to do with. As far as I'm concerned, when Wayne LaPierre sits down in one of the 6 empty chairs at my Thanksgiving table and looks me in the eye and explains to me why that he needs to keep pushing guns on violent people, that's when I might have a conversation. But beyond that, absolutely not. The NRA members are good people, but the NRA is not representing you, and they are representing violent criminals, and they are representing armed forces, arms dealers.
Sorry to cut you off.
It's all right.
You know, the conversation we need to have is how do we keep our kids and our community safe? But we can't even have that conversation, which I think many Maine people would agree on. But we can't have that conversation because of the influence of NRA money. It's one of the reasons that one of the main reasons I am running as a clean elections candidate. I don't think anyone here is going to get NRA money individually now that we've all gotten Fs. But I know that the Democratic Party has taken money from the NRA. I know that people are afraid of the NRA money because they have so infiltrated our political system that people are afraid to even have normal, rational conversations that we all share about how do we keep our kids safe. We are never going to get common sense gun safety laws or follow the lead of our beautiful young people who are standing up and say, take us seriously. I am thrilled to have been certified by Moms Demand Action as a certified gun safety candidate, but we are never going to make progress on this issue and keeping Mainers safe until we get money out of politics.
Betsy, thank you. Adam, I believe you had a response. We have 1 minute.
Sure. Well, I would agree with Betsy. I was also a distinguished Moms Demand Action candidate as well. And I grew up around firearms. I understand them. I own them. I've trained lots of soldiers on them in the military. But I believe we have to stand up and we have to have some common sense gun safety legislation. I think we can get this state together to do that. I feel confident I'd be able to do that. Janet, this is the first time I've heard you say that. That is absolutely not the reason why I put it out there. I put out that you got the endorsement from the NRA, 3 of them, and 4 years of A ratings because you voted against background checks, because you voted against allowing universities like this to restrict guns, and because we had debates that we had. I remember one in Arundel where you were asked and you said the reason you got an endorsement from the NRA was probably for conservation issues. I knew that wasn't true.
They said at the time because of my votes on access to hunting land.
You'll have 30
exactly
seconds.
What they said.
30 seconds for a
Janet,
rebuttal.
I can send over the votes. These are public records. I understand political theater as much as everybody, but the reality is you had a vote. You had several votes on this, and that's the reason why you got the A rating. It wasn't for conservation issues, it wasn't for anything else. And I wasn't the first one to say this. I started out by saying we've had 50 events. We know each other pretty well here. We know what each person is going to say. I recognize we've only had 3 televised debates, but I've heard you over and over and over again say that it's conservation. I know that's not true.
I need to wrap you up. I need to wrap. We have time on that question, Donna.
Thank you.
I think, there is 2 parts of NRA. There may be some individuals here that are members of NRA who do forestry and do hunting and tours and whatever else. And I spent a lot of time, do we want the money part making the influence and leading us down the wrong path, or other individuals the wrong path? You're absolutely right. We do not. But do we need some of the individuals who understand the safety that needs to happen, the safety that needs to happen in our communities, in our schools, in our students? That is important. And do we want to talk to them? I do not want to talk to those who are just interested in making sure that they pass out incorrect information and use money to do that. But I know that locally we have a lot of individuals that I respect, and I have spent some time talking to them. I do want them at the table. I want them to take the responsibility and accountability for safety. And how do they think that's going to happen? And having someone internally from the NRA who is not the management end, who's not pressing the money, who's not giving the false information, but who actually works out there and had become one because of safety. I would like them. Thank you.
Senator Dion.
Thank you. I've worked on gun legislation. I passed the state's first universal background check, and I did that working with responsible gun owners. I did that by working with the NRA being at the table. You can't get anything done unless everyone's at the table. And when we came out of that 18 months of negotiations, we had a background check bill that exempted family transfers, that respected the tradition of Maine, that honored its hunting, but at the same time recognized that some individuals should not be allowed to purchase a firearm. The governor vetoed that. I've worked on the red flag bill when it wasn't popular 2 sessions ago, saying we should divorce those with persistent psychiatric issues from their firearms. And that didn't go anywhere at that time, but it laid the foundation for the red flag bill, and the Attorney General joined me on that, and I think that that was critical. My message to Maine voters is this: as governor, I respect the rights of individuals to be who they are in relationship to their firearms, as long as they follow the law.
So I've got 3 kids that go to school. They're just finishing up the 7th, 5th, and 3rd grade, and this is about school safety. We have to have an all-the-above approach, and part of it is taking on the NRA. Now, as I told you a little bit about my background as a family therapist, you can imagine I kind of am a collaborative guy. Everybody at the table, let's figure this one out together. This is the exception. I've seen it over and over and over again, including the bill that Senator Dion did pass. Worked very hard, got it to the governor's desk through the House and the Senate, got it to the governor's desk. The reason why we don't have universal background checks is because the NRA gets in the middle and they scare politicians. They scare Democratic politicians to taking strong stances that we need to take. I've been out on front on this one, and we need to make sure that we have universal background checks, ban assault rifles, bump stocks, and high-capacity magazines. We're not going to do that unless we draw a hard line with the NRA and not have them at the table. If we do, nothing will get done, and this is too important of an issue for nothing to get done.
Speaker Eves, thank
I
you.
do deserve a response.
Yes,
my record has been
30
distorted
seconds.
once again. I was proud in the legislature to work with the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine, with Republicans and Democrats, to pass the very first bill that allows judges to take guns away from domestic abusers. That's what I did in the legislature. The background checks bill you're talking about was Stan Grozovsky. He supports me. That bill was not able to be passed. It got a negative vote in the committee. I can go on and on about specific votes, but I was there, and I've never taken a dime from the NRA. I was there with Senator Dion. I don't know where Adam was on April 2nd, April 12th, April 13th, but I know where I was. I was standing up to the NRA, standing up to the gun lobby with Senator Dion for a red flag bill that should be passed.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to go to our panel. Isaac, you have a question.
Yes, I do. Governor LePage's legacy looms large in this race, and you all oppose much of the policies that Governor LePage has supported during his years in the Blaine House. But could you tell us about a policy of his that you do support?
Diane Russell, your turn.
Think hard.
Actually, the governor worked really hard, I think, with Emily Kane on a domestic violence bill. And he understands that domestic violence really devastates families. And so I was proud to support that, to vote for it. You know, when we talk about the governor's legacy, that's the governor's problem. If he has no legacy that's really lasting, that's on him. My goal is to make sure that we start looking ahead and we start talking about Medicare for all, we start talking about a New Deal grounded in an economic security Bill of Rights, a good job with fair wages, the right to organize at work, the right for equal pay for equal work, the right to a secure retirement and a public option retirement system. Those are the kinds of things that I think we're all ready to be talking about. If the governor wants to keep talking, he's welcome to, but he's on his way out, and I'm good with that.
So one of the issues that the governor, it wasn't his initiative, but he didn't oppose it and he didn't veto it, is, which is, you know, something, right? Is all about local food and food sovereignty and farmers. The only young people that are moving into the state right now are young farmers, and they are revitalizing so many of our local rural communities by growing their food, selling their food locally, revitalizing the granges without the interference of big government. I think that's a really positive thing. It's a place for economic development. These folks move in, and people also who are already here, and they're doing these small 8-10 head of cattle. They're making yogurt and cheese, and it's amazing. And as economic development planning goes, we don't do a thing to help them with marketing or using getting their stuff sold in their local communities. Being able to do that without the influence of big government is something I really support and I'm excited about. I've met so many great young farmers across the state. And also, I think he didn't veto GMO labeling, and we were one of the first states in the country for that, and so for that I'm grateful.
Yeah, I was going to say the domestic violence piece, but Diane already got that. But I would also say from just going to so many National Guard events, he's always done a really nice job of having a presence there. First Lady LePage has been phenomenal at veterans issues. Also, speaking about the trades, I think are important. It's harder to find a plumber, electrician, or a finished carpenter or mason in this state than it is a lawyer. He's talked about it. I've disagreed with the policy approach about how to do it. I've come forward with a workforce training bond package that I'd like to put forward, but he has talked about it and recognized it, and I think that's important.
I think Governor LePage put forward a bill pertaining to liens on property. Especially, this was specifically for individuals 65 and older. We'd had incidences in the state of Maine where elderly people were having a hard time doing their taxes, and as a result, he wanted to expand that to assist individuals in being able to stay in their homes and being able to treat them in a different situation so that they could look at financing and work closely with, be it the cities and the towns, so that people were not put out on the street. And I think that was a good bill because it focused on the individuals who now are on a set pay in retirement and have had a lot of problems. So for me, that was a good bill that I think he did to emphasize those individuals.
I've had all this time to think about it, and I'm still struggling for an answer. Listen, I think the governor exercised actually some moral leadership when it came to domestic violence. I may dispute many other policy points with the governor, but I think there was a piece of him that had integrity, and he supported those initiatives to all our benefits. So I do compliment him on that. After that, I go quickly downhill. And the reason, I guess the only positive I could take from the LePage administration, at least for myself and many Democrats as well, he helped focus our energy. It was clear to us what had to be done. There was no ambiguity about where he stood, so it made us more strong as Democrats to coalesce around what we thought was right and to try to take the hill. And sometimes we did it in a very glorious fashion, and many times we were pushed back. But it doesn't matter. I came to understand who we were as a party as we engaged the governor. Thank you.
Senator Dion's right. Sometimes we won some and sometimes we didn't. I was in a position for 4 years as Speaker of the House to recruit, train, and make sure that House Democrats won their election so that we were the backstop to Governor LePage for the time that he was in there. I think the one thing that I would go to is there was a transportation bond that the governor put forward that included investments in the port in Portland that connected the rail to the shipyard, that allowed for us to move our goods and products much more easily. Right now, if you drive down downtown Portland, look at the yard, there are skip shipping containers just filling the yard there. Goods coming in and out, including our beer box, I think once a year, our craft beer going around the world. That was an investment that was made in Portland that benefited the entire state. Benefited blueberry farmers in Washington County, it benefited our forest products industries in northern Maine to get our products out. So that's one area around economic development, and I think the governor got it right with that specific investment.
Thanks for the question. And one thing comes to mind very easily, very readily, and that is, look, I have been talking to medical professionals for a couple of years about the importance of capping prescriptions of opioids. It's a really important thing. 3 years ago, Maine had the highest rate of prescribing opioids, oxycodone, OxyContin. They prescribed 1.2 million prescriptions. And that's one prescription for almost every man, woman, and child in the state of Maine. Only the governor could have put the bill in that became Chapter 488, which caps daily dosage limits, puts daily dosage limits on opioids and benzodiazepines, and durational limits, and requires all providers, prescribers, to check the prescription drug monitoring program to make sure somebody's not getting some other drug. I applaud him for that. I lobbied for it, I testified for it, and I appreciate his leadership in that area.
Quickly, we want to go to the panel. Paul has one last question.
We have 1 minute left in the show. Ranked choice voting is in play Tuesday. We want to know, will you rank candidates or will you just vote for yourself and no one else?
I will absolutely rank candidates. I think it's a wonderful way to increase democracy.
Quick answers, less than a minute. Go ahead.
Adam, it's you.
Oh, I will definitely rank candidates. I know which camera to look at.
Yes.
I will definitely rank candidates. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Yes, I will rank.
Yes, I will.
Yes.
I fought 10 years for ranked choice voting. You're done right. I'm going to rank them.
Sounds like all yeses. Well, we want to thank all of the candidates. We want to thank our audience as well. That's all the time that we have for tonight's debate. We, of course, want to thank you, Maine, at Augusta, for hosting us, as well as our partners at WMTW-TV and WAGM. Again, thank you for watching. I'm Megan Torgeson. Have a great night.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Megan.